Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art and I teach watercolor, and today we are doing the Prickly Pear Cactus. Oh, that was really nice.
Thank you.
That's Michael, who's working the cameras. He'll tell me where to look and ask questions for you guys along the way. We will be doing this project in 5 steps. So our very first step is we will sketch our cactus. Our second step is we will do a wash on our cactus. Our third step is we will paint the fruit. Wait, are these fruit?
Those are flowers.
They're flowers?
Yeah.
I Googled it and it said these are fruit.
Well, flowers turn into fruit.
How do you know when it's a flower and then a fruit?
I mean, I don't know. You probably, it turns into a fruit. I just can't tell from this camera angle.
Okay. Okay.
Look at it from the top.
Okay. Flowers or fruit, depending on where it is in its blooming cycle. Is that? Okay. And then step number 4, we will do our background. And then our very last step is we will do the needles on the cactus. Okay, the supplies that we are using. I'm using a round 2, round 6 brush. These are our go-to brushes. I highly recommend these brushes. I will also say that if you have a larger paintbrush, either a larger round or a wash, it would be best to utilize it during this time because we will be painting the background and that's just a lot of space to fill, so get a bigger brush if you have one. If not, you can use your round 6. It's just going to take you longer. The colors that we are using are from our Dandelion Paint Co., which is our in-house brand. So we make these colors for you. And our very first color is deep blue. And our second color is pine green. And our third color is honey brown. And our last color here is fuchsia. And I love liquid watercolors because of their vibrancy, because how they blend. I just think they're really fun to use.
They taste better.
They taste better.
Don't eat them. Disclaimer, please don't eat them.
They stay on your hands forever, so if you want to look like an artist, you will look like an artist.
That's nice.
Okay.
I got news about the flower versus the fruit.
Okay.
The flower, you can tell it's a flower if there's a green bulb and then pink or red on top.
Okay.
When the pink on top sheds and the green bulb turns pink or red, that's the fruit.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Thank you. All right. So let's do our oath and then we will get to painting. So if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun. Aruga!
We're still missing our bell.
We lost our bell.
Keenan, where'd you put that bell? Okay. So let's get into it. Very first step is we are going to sketch our prickly pear cactus. Now, for those of you who are like, I don't draw, I can't do this. First of all, yes, you can. Don't think of it as drawing something. Just think of it as making marks on a paper. Everybody can do that.
That's deep.
Right?
Yeah, I like that.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a roundish thing on the right-hand side. And I want it to be like halfway up my painting. So I'm going to start a little bit to the right of the middle of half my paper. And I'll do this dark, but you guys go ahead and sketch lightly. But I'll do it dark so you guys can see.
Also, to put you at ease, I've never seen like a really cool looking cactus. They're all wonky.
Well, yeah, like I was actually looking at a bunch of different pictures of prickly pear cactus to make sure I'm getting like the shape. And there is a lot of variation, okay? There is some funkiness going on. But this is what I did notice. What I did notice is it tends to start out narrow at the bottom and then round out at the top.
Like an upside down pear.
Like an upside down pear.
Like an upside down prickly.
And then the same thing for like the things that grow like off of it, like the next cactus section kind of comes off and also narrows in. But it's not perfectly round and smooth. Like, see how I have like some wonkiness going here? Like that's what it looks like. It's great because then it's just like, well, so much freedom when it comes to like painting and drawing, right? Okay, so we got our 2 cactuses, or 1 cactus, 2 sections. And then now we're gonna do our fruit, flowers.
Those are fruit.
These are fruit.
So the flower sits on top of a uterus.
Okay.
And it gets fertilized, and the flower falls off, and the uterus turns from green to red.
Okay. And then these are kind of like this shape, like a teeth. I mean, like, I'm trying to think of like what this shape is.
Fish scales.
It's not perfectly round, and it's not like fruit like an apple. Like if you look at the shape of the fruits, it kind of curves and then flattens on top and curves back down like this. So this is kind of the shape we're looking for, but this is a very loose painting. So, you know, be nice to yourself.
They look like zombie fingers.
I just only see teeth when I see it.
Just rah. Zombie teeth? Can we call them zombie teeth?
Yeah, they're zombie teeth. And I know you're looking at this and you're saying, Sarah, this looks funky. I know it does. Keep on going with me. You guys, we can do this. And then I'm going to do some on the right-hand side here too. And let them overlap with each other. See how I have some overlapping and in the background and stuff like that?
Okay, you looked at a bunch of these pictures.
Mm-hmm.
The flower fruit, they don't only happen on the topmost one, they happen kind of on all of them?
Yes.
That's cool.
If I remember correctly, it's not just like the top one. But like, now that I'm saying that so confidently, I could have just been like, we need fruit over here. Even if that's not anatomically or scientifically right. But that's the joy of being an artist, you guys. You get to make up the rules, you know what I'm saying?
No, you're right. They grow.
They grow on all of it?
All of it.
Yes. Okay, now I'm just kind of erasing the lines where my fruit overlapped with my cactus. And then if there's any adjustments you want to make, you can make them now, but I feel really good about it. Actually, I might round this guy out. And also, even though we sketch beforehand or use an outline beforehand, that doesn't mean you can't change as you paint. If as you're painting and you're putting in color and you're like, ooh, I want to make this rounder, or if you like your brush slips and you got to make the whole thing bigger so you don't have this part poking out. I do stuff like that all the time. So like, you're free to make adjustments as you go.
That's
even if we
great life lesson, Sarah. It's never too late to change.
Never too late to change. All right. Let's get to step 2, which is the fun part, which is the painting part. So I'm going to grab my round 6 and I'm going to use just water, and we're going to use wet on wet technique here, which means I'm going to put down water, get it wet, and then when it's wet, I'm going to drop in color. Now for your colors, you have green here, but this pine green is a really, really cool green, which means it has strong undertones of blue. So if you want a warmer green, go ahead and add honey brown to it. So here's my pine green, here's my honey brown. Oh yeah, look at that green I got. Beautiful. And then just drop it in. And kind of help it move.
I'm not typically a green fan, but I love that green.
I'm a green fan. I wasn't always, but recently I just, okay, and this is the other fun thing about wet on wet, is like when it's nice and wet like this, you can just drop in pure tones of other color, like, or hues, I guess I should say. So like right there, I dropped in honey brown, and then I just kind of like brushed it out and moved it around so it's not like a dot.
Cool.
And you can do that also with the deep blue. So really like allow yourself to play and have fun when doing this part. This is where we're really celebrating what watercolor does and how it interacts with the water. And we're letting go of control a little bit and embracing what happens.
That brown spot makes it so much more realistic to me. It reminds me of like maybe a bird pecked that last year to get water and it healed back up. And
yeah, like there's variation. So much of color, of value. Maybe it's like, I don't know. Maybe, you know how sometimes I feel like some plants can get like sunburned?
yeah.
Now I am gonna add, so I have my pine green, I have honey brown, and I'm gonna add a little bit of fuchsia to get a darker value, but I still want it to read green. And then like at this part, I'm gonna drop it in because I want there to be a little bit of like the fruit is casting a little bit of a shadow, and I want it to be clear that this is kind of tightening up and then going back out. So I'm adding a little bit of a darker value there and just letting it kind of bleed and move and do its own thing.
I gotta tell you, Sarah, I haven't been able to stop thinking about the fact that you think those look like teeth. It's disturbing to me for some reason.
You don't think they look like teeth? Like crooked teeth in a mouth? Like I just think of those fake teeth that people wear for like Halloween. It's all I can see.
I guess. I just never would have gone there initially.
It's fine. It's fine. Oh my gosh, look at these. Look at these color variations that I'm getting. Look at these value variations that I'm getting. Like, it is so beautiful. And I love, like, listen, I love a good detailed project. Okay, I do. I love being able to make something look realistic. I do. But this is so much more satisfying to me. Like, this is so fun. I adore the blooms. I adore the color changes. I love the undertones underneath. And I love the freedom of being able to say, I'm just going to drop in color. I'm going to drop in these different values, and I'm just going to see what happens. I don't know, I just feel like there's so much freedom to it. Like, okay, I need to, sorry, I'm just loving it. All right, so I did that section. Now I'm going to move on and do this section. And we want them to kind of blend together too. So like go ahead and touch your big cactus. That's going to bring in some of that color. The color goes where there's water. So it's nice and wet. And then when it's nice and wet, let's drop in some green. Let's drop in some honey brown. Let's drop in some water to move it around more. Let's drop in some blue. Blue mixed with pine green. Like, really allow yourself to play with these different variations. Like, look at this blue. Can you see this turquoise color that I'm dropping in? Mm-hmm. Like, why not? What?
Just, I like that attitude.
And in terms of like, which one is the correct one? Should I go with more warm green? Should I go with cooler green? Should I do a mix? Like, what should I do? This is where personal preference is everything. Because for me, I love both. I love utilizing yellow greens and blue greens while I'm painting them simultaneously. I just think it adds visual interest, color richness, all of these things that I love. That doesn't mean that you have to love them also. And if you're painting this and you're like, okay, cool, but like this blue is actually really distracting, I don't like it at all, well then you can totally not do that color. And your want or your desire or your tendency to not use the same colors that I'm doing, follow that. That's your creative preferences telling you what you like. Those are your stylistic choices that you're going after. And it's not wrong to listen to them. And when we listen to them and when we explore and try things, that's where we learn the most. That's how we develop our own style. That's how we learn, you know?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Okay, now I feel like this got too narrow for how round my cactus is. So I'm just going to connect it a little bit more over here.
Thicken that neck up.
Thicken the neck up. Man, that blue, I really am in love with how that turned out. I'm gonna add some more over here actually. Now because there's green underneath there, it won't show up as strong, but just some undertones of blue.
I feel like you're gonna have diminishing returns based on how much water's there also, right?
Talk more, what do you mean?
Like if your cactus area is super wet and you keep trying to put more color on, I feel like less will come off of your brush onto that water and it'll just turn into mud.
Like if you have a puddle,
Yeah.
then sometimes, and you're trying to get something darker, it's not gonna work. That's when you just take your paper towel, absorb that extra water, and then put your darker values down, and it should stay better. Okay. First of all, can we just say that that was so fun? Second of all, can we just take a moment and appreciate what's happening inside of our cactus? Because it's beautiful, so beautiful. Okay, now we're gonna do our fruit. And the fun thing about this fruit is I was looking at pictures and it can go either two colors. There's either like a peachy color or there's like a fuchsia, like pink purpley magenta color. And so I've done a little bit of both actually. So here is like more of a peachy, that one is definitely more purpley. I'm gonna leave that up to you. But if I want a more purpley, I would take my fuchsia and a tiny bit of my deep blue and get this gorgeous color. You see that? And you can just paint that right in. And then what I did, because I like a little bit of bleeding.
Because you're a rebel.
I'm a rebel. I like to live on the edge. I like to see what happens. I touch my green in. I touch it to my green just to see. Let's just see what happens. Let's see what colors I get. Now to get a more peachy color, I'm going to take my fuchsia and I'm going to take some of my honey brown and mix that together. And I'm going to get this really gorgeous color. I'm actually going to touch that a little bit on that. And then if you want like variation and stuff like that, I'm going to take just water. There's a little bit of paint on my brush, but it's mostly water like this. And then drop in some of these colors. And if you want to, like let's say you're like, I really like how this green bled into this flower here. You can try and like insert color in. So if it's nice and wet like this, I would pick up green and I would actually touch the green and push it into that pink.
Someone stop this woman.
But it's really cool. And if you want it opposite, where you're just like, I actually want the purple or pink to go into the green, then when it's wet like this, you would put the color in and push it into the cactus. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you can kind of, I mean, like, I know that these are kind of accidental elements, but there's a level of control that you can get a little bit depending on the results that you want. And maybe you're like, I don't even want to think that hard. I just want to like paint and whatever happens, happens. Go for it. There's nothing wrong with that either. I just wanted to show you how you can kind of control some of those blooms a little bit if you wanted to. I just love this. And I kind of love how they're touching each other. Remember, this is loose. Like look at the color of this fuchsia against that green. Like I just feel like it's such beautiful colors here. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on the flowers on the top. I'm going to get it wet. I'm going to grab some peachy. And if you want it to be more orange peachy, you just grab a little bit more honey brown. Look at that color. That's beautiful. And then maybe you drop in a little bit of strong fuchsia.
Was the color named for the fruit, or was the fruit named for the color, orange?
The color was named from the fruit.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. I only know that because you told me that before.
Thank you, Reddit. It's on the internet. It is true. Ooh, I like that one.
That purpley color?
Yeah.
Me too, actually. I think I might drop it in over here.
You're really channeling your zombie teeth. I appreciate it.
And for me, I think I liked the green going into the fruit more. I feel like that is a little bit more accurate in terms of, like you were saying, like the green base and the flower and stuff like that. So I'm gonna kind of push that color into this a little bit more. But really, I think that these pinks that are bleeding out onto my cactus are beautiful. And when I see things like this, I let them be, because we know our viewer is going to be able to tell that this is a cactus, right? And so, like, I know that when we're painting, when we see things like this, our brain is just like, oh no, that's messed up. Like, people are going to be confused of why there's pink bleeding into there. It's not realistic. That's not how it's actually done, blah, blah, blah. I understand that. But for me, my stylistic preference is that if people can tell what it still is, but it also adds something unexpected, then that's a win. You know what I mean? So again, embrace the different colors, textures, and blooms that you're going to get in this project. And really, sometimes you need paintings where you're not trying to make it look perfect and you're not trying to make it look super realistic. And maybe there are some paintings where you're like, I'm going to just see how funky I can get, and I'm going to see what colors will mix if I do this and do this. Like, give yourself that permission and freedom to explore and not have to end up with something that's like the most beautiful thing. Like, sometimes it's helpful to go into something to say, like, I'm going to like not try to make this look really good.
I'm going for ugly.
Yes. Yeah. And I know that that sounds so funny, but sometimes when I get like let's say I have the feeling like I really want to paint, but like whatever I'm painting, it's not coming out and I'm getting frustrated and I don't know like what's going on and I'm like starting over. In those moments, I say, okay, this next painting, I'm gonna just try and make it look bad. I'm just gonna try. And so I'm like doing weird marks and I'm doing weird colors and I'm really just playing with the paints, the paper, the water, salts, like whatever I have. And then it makes it easier for me. Like, after I get that out of my system, I feel like it's much easier for me to then approach something and not feel like frustrated by it.
That going for ugly mindset is great for dating also. You'll never be disappointed if you're just going for ugly. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You ever ate these?
Prickly pear fruit?
Yeah, so you can eat the fruit and the green part. They're called nopales in like Mexican cuisine. I know you've had it because I remember you've ordered it before. They look like little cut up green strips. I think you ordered it at Mata's in Arizona. Shout out to Mata's.
Oh, really? I don't remember that, but that doesn't surprise me. I eat a lot of food.
The fruit, I just looked them up. You cut them open and they kind of look like a fig inside.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of like a skin with like a goop in the middle.
Figs are so beautiful. I love painting figs because the inside of figs are just gorgeous. Okay, I accidentally put amethyst on my palette, which I don't want. We're not using that color. I'm going to put deep blue on my palette because we're going to go into step 4, which is the background. Okay, and this is where having a larger brush is beneficial because we're going to do our entire background. Now, usually I do backgrounds first. Like, the order of operations when you do a background is you usually want to do the background first and then build on top of it. What?
I just love that you said order of operations. It just sounds sciencey to me.
But I feel like, if I'm being just totally transparent with you guys of what I've learned, when you do backgrounds first and layer on top, it's beneficial in landscapes. When we're doing things like this, I haven't really noticed a huge difference between doing the background first and then the subject, or the subject first and then the background, because like there's only two layers going on here. You know what I'm saying? Where if there was like a third layer or something like that that we would want to go over both, then it matters. You know what I'm saying? Like, anyways, I'm teaching you guys what I know, but I'm also teaching you what I've noticed. And I like, if you were to paint this background first on this cactus and then they did the cactus last, I don't think it would make a difference. Like, I don't know. So we're just doing it now. And I'm gonna take water. And I want it to be the darkest value down here. So that's where I'm putting in my paint. And then as I get to the top, I'm adding water, and it's going to lighten up that value. And I'm working pretty quickly, and I'm trying to avoid touching my cactus. Now you can see here, I accidentally touched it, it's bleeding a little bit, but again, I'm going for a loose painting, so that doesn't bother me as much. I guess in this instance, like right here, this is why you would do the background first if you didn't want that bleeding. Because if you did the background first, let it dry completely, and then painted your cactus on top, as long as your background was dry, it wouldn't bleed. There we go. Problem solved.
Was your cactus dry there? If your cactus dried, would it have done that?
Well, it doesn't matter because I was touching it with water. So it reconstituted that paint. If it was really, really wet, it would have a higher chance of it bleeding more, even if I touched it with water.
It seems maybe if we're getting real scientific about this, it's whichever is more concentrated paint, you should do second. Because if it's a light wash and you reconstitute it accidentally with water, it won't bleed into whatever you're doing. But if it's a dark wash and you're painting light as the second portion, and it touches that dried dark wash, it'll reconstitute and bleed, right?
I am not following what you're saying, but that's okay. It's just because I'm... Say it again.
When you have a painting,
yes,
with a background and a foreground,
yes,
you need to analyze which one of the two you think will be a more concentrated color, okay? So let's say you have a dark subject, like a concentrated subject on a light wash, okay? In that scenario, you would do the light wash first. Because when it dries and you accidentally bump it with a wet brush, that color will reconstitute, but because it's light, it won't bleed into your subject.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, and that rule is actually true for just building up values in watercolor as well. You always usually want to start light and build up, but for the background, I see that way of thinking. And
this is hard because these are both pretty concentrated.
Yeah,
colors.
These are both like having dark and light values. Now, also, if you guys want to mix like a little bit of purpley blue, so if you take some fuchsia into your deep blue and like do that as part of the background, you can. You can do different, you can go a little bit crazy here with color. And now I'm using like mostly water here, and I'm working pretty quickly. Again, the reason why I work quickly is because if you put paint down on the paper and you want it to like blend out, and you take too long to touch it, it has a harder time of blending out. Like the lines will stay longer. Does that make sense?
Yes. I've come to appreciate that chisel-y wash brush.
The wash, yeah. I mean, it's so quick. Like, look how quick I was able to like...
And even.
Yeah, even and filling up space fast. It's also like if you're working around edges, like mostly straight edges, it's really nice. I'm gonna get more paint here because I want this value to match that value, so I gotta get some more paint and layers going on. I'm actually gonna mix some more fuchsia in there, give it a purpley blue. Ooh. I love that undertone of purple in there. I wasn't planning that, but I really kind of love how that turned out.
So much.
And now that I'm getting towards the top where I want it to be a lighter value, I'm rinsing my brush and just pulling from what's already there. gosh, I love how there's like that purple tint. I'm going to actually move that across over here because I think that's really beautiful.
Did you choose blue on purpose for this project as a background? For any reason?
I just thought it would like feel, well, one, I'm trying to do more backgrounds for you guys because I've been seeing those requests of trying to figure out how to do backgrounds in watercolor. And two, I just felt like it would be a beautiful color to go along with the green and the touches of like pink. But you don't have to, you can totally do like a different color if you want. You don't have to do what I'm doing.
What is blue's complement?
Blue's complement is orange.
What's green's complement?
Red.
Man, this is so fun. You're like an encyclopedia.
And then if you're getting close to like the flowers and stuff like that, you can actually switch to your round to get in between some of these colors here. Or you can leave some white spaces again. It's up to you what you want to do. But I will say that like colors have feels. They have feels. They give a sense of feeling of something. And so I chose a cooler background because I wanted this to feel like calm. Cool.
Chill, bro.
If you did like a red background on here, that would be cool because it would be interesting because red is green's complement, so those colors would pop and work against each other. However, it would give a very different feel to this painting because red is a very warm, vibrant color that's associated with a lot of things. So like color, there's like this whole, you could take so many classes on color theory. Like colors signify feelings and they have power to them. So choosing colors, it depends on the feeling you want to give, or if you want it to feel hot and active and high energy, then like red, like a vibrant red would give you that feeling, where like I wanted it to feel a little bit more static and
serene.
Yeah. So I went with more of a blue. I also thought that this vibrant blue would complement the greens and the pinks really well. So like, just when you guys are making decisions on your own paintings, just keep things like that in mind. And the best thing that you can do where you're just like, well, how do I know what does what? One, you can always do like a quick Google search, right? The other one is you can just explore and you can just try it and be like, all right, I'm gonna try this same painting in 4 different color stories. And I'm gonna see how each one makes me feel. And that will take time because then you'll have to look at each painting and think about, okay, what am I feeling when I look at this? And you can ask other people, you know what I mean? But sometimes people get a little bit funny when you ask them questions about like how art makes them feel, and that's okay, it's just a new experience.
Sarah, that's a great tip you just gave. Why don't you give one of these?
We found it!
I found it!
Okay, that was step 4. Good job. We're on to our very last step. We're gonna put in our needles. So I'm gonna take my round 2 and I'm gonna mix a dark value. So basically I'm gonna mix all my colors together because I'm looking for like a brownish color or a black. Just a dark value. And then I'm gonna put in little like dots. Now when you put in dots, when you're putting in like if this is my cactus here and you're trying to make like a pattern or like an evenly spread pattern, what you do is you do a line and then the next line goes in between. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Now, of course, this is nature, so it's not going to be perfectly even like that, but the opposite is our brain is going to want to like put things in a line, whether we mean to or not. So you see how when it feels random, you're actually creating stronger implied lines maybe. So like just just be aware. Just be aware of your dot placement. I'm going to follow kind of more this a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfectly measured, but it's just helping me to keep different spacing. And if some parts of my cactus are still wet, like that will bleed a little bit, that's okay. Or if it's really dry, it won't. I'm going with both. You can see here that some of these bled and some of these didn't. So I really just allowed it to be whatever happened as I put in.
We've talked about this in other cactus projects before, and it's one of my favorite fun facts. But do you remember what the name of those pokey things are on a cactus?
No, what are they?
I'm going to give you 3 options.
Okay.
That are botanically correct for pokey things. There are thorns.
Okay.
There are spines. And there are prickles.
Spines.
How do you know?
How do I know that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, you're right.
I'm right.
Spines are modified leaves. You can tell when you look at where they come out of the plant, the little axial bud, if it's on top or below.
Okay.
If you look at a plant and on top of it, on top of the little pokey part, there's a tiny little nub. It's a modified leaf and it's a spine.
Okay.
If the pokey part is on top of something, then it's a thorn because that's a modified branch.
Okay.
And a prickle is everywhere. They just come off the skin.
Okay. Okay.
That might be a lot for y'all people, but
these
look
are
it up.
spines.
It's interesting. These are spines.
Okay. Well, cool. So I put in my dots where the spines are going to come out of. And then doing my spines, I'm just going to do thin lines. Make sure that there's not too much water on your brush because we want these to stay pretty thin. And they're just going to poke out. And sometimes, like, I was looking at pictures, some of them have like one spine poking out. Some of them even have like a couple. And also, you don't have to do spines on all of them. And also, they don't have to be just contained in the cactus. So I have some kind of coming off the edge a little bit.
Birds pull those things off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they like find cacti that they like drinking out of, and they pull off a little area of spines, and then they can land there safely.
Oh.
And like drink out of it.
Okay, so it makes sense that maybe some of these like darker areas don't have.
Oh yeah, poor pesky kids.
Those kids taking these spines off the cactus. And you can have them kind of going all different ways, right? Because they do.
You know those nasty trees that grow here? I don't even know the name of them. I think they're hedge trees. They've got those huge spikes on them.
Yes.
I think those are thorns.
Okay, yeah, those are.
Those are gnarly. Those will pop your tire.
Those are very gnarly. That's it. That's our cactus.
It's beautiful.
Isn't it so fun?
Yeah, it's so vibrant.
And then look, now that our cactus has dried, look at where I put colors in my cactus. You see where I put that turquoisey color underneath there?
Yes.
And it's just like peeking through the green and the yellow. So beautiful. Here you can tell I put the deep blue, and that's where I dropped in that strong honey brown. Here and here. It's just lovely. It's so lovely. And I would say my favorite like flower area, I actually really love how this purple bled into the green. I know I said I liked the green bleeding in, but seeing this changed my mind.
Yep.
And I think this is my favorite flower area. What about you, Michael?
I agree.
Yeah.
I can't believe that really light colored pink pushed that green away like that, because usually I feel like it would just mud up, you know?
Yeah. It's just like if I laid it on top of it, like did a layer on top, it would turn to mud. But because I was taking like a clean area a little bit and pushing into it, that color is moving the other color a little bit. But
I've watched you paint a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I just feel like this is a kind of a first for me, seeing that texture happen like that.
Well, I realized it's funny because like as a teacher, I'm painting pretty consistently, making projects for you guys, and I'm also continuing to learn, and I'm also improving. So like that was something that I've actually learned recently, where like I knew that I would get interesting bleeds if I just let things touch, but the color bleeds I can get into other colors was actually something that I recently learned on my own. So that's why we haven't really talked about it before. So anyways, I hope that's helpful for you. It's a fun tip for me, and it makes me feel it makes me feel excited that I can be painting watercolor, I mean, for years and years. And there are still things that I'm learning, and then that I can share that with you guys. So I'm really excited about that. Okay, should we do the reveal?
Do it.
Now, I believe I've talked about in another tutorial, but I'm just going to remind you guys here. We tape down this paper because it tends to warp, and that's true for watercolor paper. It just warps when it gets wet. If you want it to dry as as flat as possible, then don't untape it while it's still wet. Okay, let it dry for a long time. But I untape it right here for you guys because this reveal is so satisfying.
Sarah, while you're doing this, I'm gonna ask you questions.
Okay.
If you double stick taped like the whole back side of that and stuck it to a flat surface, would it warp at all?
I don't know, actually. And I actually wanted to order some like wood canvases and adhesive some watercolor paper to that and then paint on them to see what the paper does. But I haven't done that yet, so I'm not sure.
Someone double stick tape and tell us how it goes.
I'm sure there are some watercolor artists that like know the answers to this, but like even like stretching your paper is when you get the whole thing wet before you paint on it to take the starch out of it, so then it doesn't warp as much.
Why don't they do that at the factory?
I don't know.
Let's call them up.
I haven't researched this enough, you guys. I'm really sorry, but I have noticed that when I have tried to stretch my paper before, it still
doesn't work that well.
It still gets wavy. So then I'm like, well, if it's going to get wavy anyway, why am I going to take the time to stretch it? But there could be something that I'm missing, truly. I mean, I have taken one watercolor class in college a long time ago, and I don't remember talking about stretching. And like everything else I've kind of just learned on my own, so it's possible that there's something that I'm just missing. Okay, can we pause and just like hail to this magical tape? Because hello, no bleeds. Magical tape. Okay.
It really is. It's
I
so
know.
Funny. We bought expensive painter's tape. I bought you like the nice Frog brand, everything. And like, this is so much better.
It is so much better. All right. There it is. It's done. It's beautiful. I love it. I hope you guys just have fun with this. My whole goal with this painting was to remind you guys that painting should be fun. It should be play. It should be exploring. So I can't wait to see what you guys do. They're all going to look different. Look at all of the color mixing we did. We drew it ourselves. Like, there's going to be variations, and we can appreciate the variations within each other. If you're on Facebook, join our Facebook group. We've made it so you guys can connect with each other, so you guys can see what each other are painting and learn from each other and grow and support and all this wonderful thing. Because when you're trying something new, it's scary, but it doesn't have to be scary. That's why we're here, to help you. So that is called Let's Make Art Watercolor. If you're on Instagram, you could tag us at Let's Go Make Art or hashtag Let's Make Art. And if you need any of these supplies, like this amazing tape that we were just talking about, brushes, the paper, the paints, any of this, you can find them at letsmakeart.com. Michael, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
And I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.